Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, where we celebrate the incredible journeys of fathers who are making a difference. Hosted by Urban Light Ministry President and author, Pastor Eli Williams. Each week, we'll hear from an inspiring guest who will share their unique fatherhood story. We'll discuss the challenges, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way, offering valuable insights and encouragement for all dads. Join us as we explore the power of fatherhood and build a brighter future for our families.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast. Eli Williams here, and we are kind of tickled pink to have with us today Terron Edwards from Milwaukee, and he has an interesting story and always inspiring account of what's going on in his life and in his work. So, Terron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, man, thank you for having me, Eli. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be a part of this.
Fantastic. All right. Now, we like to start off by having our guests talk about their own fatherhood experience. And let's begin with you. Share with us about your relationship with your father, starting when you were young.
All right. Well, I was born in Flint, Michigan. I grew up in the 80s, and, my parents were, they were married. I was a planned child, I came about 2 years into the marriage. My dad was he was a good father, for the most part, he spent time with me, we did a lot of stuff, and I'm just going to be honest is the only way I know how to be about this. He was a good dad. I'm not quite sure if he was ready to be a husband. I know him and my mom had a lot of problems, a lot of issues, kind of have, some other siblings from some other relationships from while they were married. Yeah, my dad was a great provider. He was involved in some things, unfortunately, where he was murdered. By the time I was 9 years old, he was killed and he was gone from my life. That really started some pretty tough times for me and my mom and, for the family. And that's actually how I got here to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Our support system lied here because this is where her folks were from. It's one of those things where, I lost my dad early, but it's funny, like some of the lessons and some of the things that he would tell me, still are kind of a part of my life and a part of my being, and I still remember them. It's almost, I don't know, it's like I don't know if he knew he'd be gone early, but he talked to me a lot of times like I was a grown man, even when I was 6 and 7 and 8 years old. And just some of the things that he would tell me, I know he'd say, one of his favorite quotes was, you gotta have a code. Like all men have a code that they live by. It's what separates us from the GD animals. That was his thing. Separates us from the animals.
Interesting. Yeah.
And he would say that, and it was funny anyway. Yeah, my dad was, he was a very loving guy. He was a very giving person. It's just a shame. I mean, of course, he was obviously flawed. Like we all are. But one of the things that I think about as an adult is the fact that, unfortunately, because his life was cut so short, he died in his 30s. But because his life was cut short, it's like he'll never have a chance to do or be anything else, or have a chance to just be interested to see, what kind of, like in the work I do, just what kind of granddad he would be or what kind of dad he would be.
Yeah.
To some of the younger children. Or what?
I was going to ask you if you have a relationship with your siblings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I have an older sister who I know she's out there. We chat sometime, on social media. We don't really have a relationship that I would like to have, because one of the things that I realized, and I actually talked to my brother about this. My brother, who I'm a lot closer to, I don't see or talk to him every day. He lives halfway across the country. He lives in Las Vegas now. But I mean, I like to think that we're tight, we're close. You know, that's my guy, man. You know, he was my best man in my wedding. This is my younger brother. Anyway, one of the things that we always say is, hey, man, that mess ain't got nothing to do with us. You know, the mess with the mess with dad, the mess with our mothers, and you know, and it was because it was hard. It was hard sometimes, you know, but that has nothing to do with us. And my brother that I had a brother that was 4 years younger than me. Unfortunately, he passed away as well. You know, he was killed by a drunk driver when we were kids. Like, yeah, it was pretty rough. It was a pretty traumatic event. I was actually there, you know, and witnessed it. He ran out in the street and, you know, was hit by a drunk driver. And, you know, I'm 7 years old. I tried to take him home, man. You know, yeah. But
yeah. So you've had quite a bit of trauma in your young life.
Oh yeah. I've seen it. You know, we talk about this all the time. Yeah. I've seen some things, unfortunately. You know, but to answer your question, yeah, you know, my brother is he was the best man in my wedding. You know, and you know, I was there when he got married, and you know, our children, you know each other, and yeah, I mean, we definitely have a relationship, you know.
Good. Now, you are a father yourself, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell us about your parenting experience here. What were the circumstances around your first child coming into being?
Well, Eli, you know, and again, I tell this story because this is the story of me and the story of what we become fathers making progress. You know, like all of these tragedies, like you said, I mean, going through some unfortunate trauma, but that trauma led to, you know, going into from my adolescence to my teenage years. You know, I was a part of the problem. I don't know a better way to say it. You know, I you know, statistics or whatever. You know, I was acting out. I was getting kicked out of school. You know, I found the rough crowd. You know, I started getting to trouble and with the rough crowd, and you know, I just kind of didn't really have much of a purpose. So my purpose became, you know, just sadly, you know, making $1. You know, so yeah, you know, you can take from that whatever you will. But anyway, long story short, it was during that time, you know, I met a woman who I married, and we were equally yoked in trauma. You know, she had her own stuff going on. In fact, at the time, she was in a group home. She was in a foster home. Yeah, that's how I was blessed enough to get my first son. You know, my first son. I was 16 at the time, so I was a teen dad. You know, and it was through. And it's funny, yeah. You join statistics, and you know, you become a part of statistics. But I'll say this time, Eli, and I know it doesn't always happen like this, but this is one of those times where being a father saved my life. Being a dad and having purpose outside of myself to try to be somebody for somebody else made me look at life a lot differently. It made me do things a lot differently. And I saw some of the patterns even as my son, you know, as my boy grew up, and, you know, then his brother came, you know, because they were 2.5 years apart, you know. So, you know, by the time I'm 19, I got 2 kids. Just being able, you know, just watching them and having them ask some of the same questions I remember asking my father, and just thinking to myself, gosh, I remember how this ended. I got to do something else. I got to do something different. I have to, I have to set up my life in a way where I could be long-term sustainable. You know, so as we talked about before the show started, you're like, I went to school so many different times for so many different things. Yeah, like I know how to fix cars, I know how to do HVAC repair. Hey, I even tried my hand in audio broadcasting, as I said before. And it was during that time that I was doing audio broadcasting. I was doing radio car commercials. My boys were a little older, and like I said, I just held them close, and I spent all my free time with them. That's what we did. I got them enrolled in Head Start. And it was while they were in Head Start that when I had free time, I would participate at their school. I would, I would read to the class. I would play Santa Claus during the holidays. I joined the policy council, and being a part of the policy council and getting a chance to just kind of, learn and see how that works. I just really kind of found a purpose in the calling. It was during my time there that I also started my first fatherhood group because, frankly, I just got tired of being the only guy involved, being the only guy there. So I wanted to do something to see something different. And the center director, who I, got pretty close to, she kind of called me out on it because I was complaining about it one day. I was complaining. I saw somebody I knew kind of just drop their kids off. And, he even used the term, oh, yeah, I'm dropping little man off for her. Drop him off for her. I thought that was your son, too. Like, what's going on? And, he just didn't want to stick around. I think we had something going on. And, like I said, I was complaining about it. And the center director said, hey, she ran, kind of just grabbed this, it was a manual or a pamphlet or something, like, hey, this fatherhood training, starts in about 2 weeks. It's going to be out in Philadelphia, and I want you to go. It being called out, me being not being one to back down from a challenge, I stepped up to the plate and I man. Long story short, it's that became my passion and my calling, and it was from that my first fatherhood group was formed over at Northcott Head Start, here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Lo and behold, during my time on the policy council, I became the policy council president. Kind of had this thing about not giving money back to the federal government. So I was just wondering because every year I was looking at the budget from the past 5 years, and I noticed that every year they were giving money back and the budget was shrinking. So, we actually came up with a new program. I came up with a new program that basically, Q4, which is usually around the holidays, we gave some really, really nice gifts to all the kids in the center. And it was during that time that I met someone who, they asked who organized this program. Folks pointed me out. So, I was actually introduced to AmeriCorps and Public Allies, and I became an ally, and I was placed at the New Hope Project. During my time at the New Hope Project, folks who aren't familiar with the New Hope Project or its model, basically it was a organization here. It was a policy organization that ran workforce programs. It was workforce policy organization. So they ran and they advocated for stronger policy. The really cool and unique thing about them is about New Hope is we didn't just advocate for stronger policies. We worked and showed what works, if that makes any sense. So, we just advocate hey, we can show. They have some programs that were kind of ancillary to W-2 or a program that was ancillary to W-2. Hey, we'll show how instead of giving people a check, if you give people a job, or get people hooked up with a job that meets their skill sets where, whether the job pays a living wage or not, if you can subsidize their wage up to a living wage, they'll do better than if you just gave them a paycheck, and we'll show you how it works. So, I was working in that project, and that's what we did. And it was along that line where most of the participants that we had at the time were non-custodial parents who are usually dad, I got a chance to put my fatherhood hat back on. So it was there that we put together the fatherhood program that would come to be, 20 years later, Fathers Making Progress, the organization that I'm executive president of.
That is excellent. Man, I love the way that flowed right into an explanation of what drove you and how you found the pathway to start Fathers Making Progress. Perfect. Thank you.
I ought to jump the questions. I'm sorry.
No. This was much better the way that it happened. Okay, so on that, Fathers Making Progress, you're into it 20 years now, if I understood you correct.
Yep. I was just going to say, 20. No. I was going to say 20 years as a movement, but as an organization, it's only 5 years old.
Okay, so you didn't incorporate in all that right away.
No, not right away. Not right away. See, the thing is, it's and I'm still a proponent for this. Even being a person who started his own organization, like I'm not a big fan of things just existing just for them to exist. I'm not a big fan of us just setting up something just so we can wave a flag and say that we have something. For more of its time than not, Fathers Making Progress operated as an independent movement, or as a program in arm other organizations and other initiatives. Like I said, we had a long time. We were born out of the New Hope Project. We worked with kind of a local fatherhood collaborative that we have here, that I'm still affiliated with. We worked out of our local when the New Hope Project merged with the YWCA, because it was the YWCA, the one Young Women's Association. It really wasn't so much, there wasn't so much room there for what we were doing. So we kind of went freelance, and we went to an organization here called New Concepts that ran family programs. And, we worked as an arm in that program, in that organization for a while. Unfortunately, some things happened with New Concept where, it kind of, faded out and went away. It's actually a defunct organization now. It was around that time, actually, through the pandemic. This is the pandemic. At this point, I'm working, because like I said, I've been working programs here in the city forever, so at that time, I think I was working a youth serving organization, mobilizing and organizing. I was organizing neighborhoods. I think I had like 3 or 4 neighborhoods that I was organizing for here in the city. And I was, we had our classes, in our groups and everything on the side. It was just something that we just did because it worked. And a lot of times, sometimes it worked with no money. We just passed the hat, or it was whatever I could provide with my limited fortune. Yeah, it was at that time that I guess the demand started to pick up. And one of the things that's really unique about our movement and how we do things is it's not one of those things where it's just, just a cyclical group where folks can just come and, get a certificate and leave. Though it started that way, and though we have those kind of initiatives, where folks can come in, say, get an anger management certificate or get a parenting class certificate. Or what was more interesting was folks would go through that or go through those experiences, and then they would say, hey, what's next? This is one of the better spaces that I've ever had. Hey, what's next? This is one of the better spaces that I've ever had, and I want to keep going. I want to keep participating. Can I come back? So from that, we have an alumni network of men who've been with us at this point, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 7 years, sometimes 12 years, sometimes 15 years. And those alumni who are still around, some of them, had interest in paying it forward and being part of the movement in a different kind of way. We kind of worked it out where, they were able to kind of get some training and some best practices. I have the blessing and privilege I've been trained in over, probably 15, 17, 18 different, fatherhood, workforce curricula, just different stuff that's about bettering family. From that, we developed and derived a model. We started a program called Fathers Building Fathers, where like men from the movement have actually been trained in our, I find a unique facilitation model to where they are able to facilitate classes for new men. I'm kind of jumping all over the place.
That's okay.
How I got on the alumni is, like I said, so in the pandemic, I'm working this job. We still got the classes. The demand is growing because, social isolation is coming. Social isolation is happening. We're doing the spaces kind of virtual like me and you are doing right now. That basically there was a need and desire for a second space and then the third space. And, we were able to find some small pots of money to support the spaces. I was actually furloughed. It's just funny how the spirit moves. I was furloughed from my job, by the city. Yeah, it was at that time that, it started as just kind of whispers like, hey, why don't we just incorporate and just really make this something where we need to do this? And it was actually a couple of people who were just saying this, and it started to play as a tune in my head that this space deserves this, and the time is now. It's like I can always go back. If this doesn't work out, I still got the skill set I got. I can always go back and work for something or work for a government entity or whatever, but this deserves a real shot. So we gave it a real shot. Our inaugural founding board actually was 100% made up of Fathers Making Progress alumni, which was beautiful. That's kind of what we started with. Even to this day, like, even though there's been a board renaissance and we kind of got more of a, quotes, traditional board, it's still not very traditional. We still have and will always have spaces actually written into how we govern our organization. There's always going to be a space for alumni and the people that this directly affects, on our board.
That's excellent. Wow, there's a lot to learn about what you're doing. It's quite inspiring as well. And we're going to continue our conversation with Terron Edwards. He is with Fathers Making Progress in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And lots more with him after we take this short break.
Looking to be the best dad you can be? The Fathering Strong podcast is your guide. Hosted by Pastor Eli Williams. Each episode features inspiring conversations with dads who are making a difference. Learn valuable strategies for building strong families, tackle tough fatherhood issues, and get motivated to be your best self. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Fathering Strong podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Your subscription helps us provide free services and resources to families in need. Don't wait. Subscribe to the Fathering Strong podcast today and join our community of dads committed to building strong families. Together, let's make a difference.
And we're back. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. I'm Eli Williams. Terron Edwards is with us today, and he's been sharing his story of his relationship with his own father and then his own fathering journey and how that inspired him for the work that he's doing now with Fathers Making Progress. Terron, I wanted to ask you if you are still working with Head Start.
That's a great question. Yeah, actually I am. Not I hope someone's listening who can change this, but not in the way that I want to. I'll just put it that way. We have done some co-parenting projects and a few of our Fathers Building Fathers projects in partnership with the local Head Start organization here. But I think that there's just so much more that we can do. I just really feel that, we'd started something that I'm hoping will pick up with our local public schools, system, MPS, because they have a big portion of our Head Start programs here in Milwaukee. Yeah, I guess the short answer is yes, and I'm looking to do more. I just think that there's such a potential, and like our mission is to improve the community and generational cycles, through strengthening fathers. And it's like, heavy on that generational cycles part. There's two ways that we're kind of innovating. First, it's like we're setting up, just these circles, these intergenerational circles where we're working with young men, younger, like men before they're becoming fathers or while they're young fathers. And sometimes even going back to middle school before they're even seriously considering dating when they're, just chasing girls around to try to beat them up. But we want to get to them earlier and just really kind of look and consider and just kind of refine how we become families in the first place and how we become dads in the first place. So that's one way. The other way is, for the young fathers who already are fathers, just really, really, really being intentional and giving people the best, not to sound cliche, but Head Start, giving them the best baseline, like Head Start, not just in education, but Head Start in, relationships with their children, and not just relationships with their children, relationships with their co-parents, co-parenting. Yeah. And this is kind of some of the stuff that I'm actually looking to do a whole lot more of with NPS is, co-parenting and us facilitating strong co-parenting spaces.
When you and mom, just really aren't getting along the way that you should be, none of that matters. So it's like we can arm people, but none of that matters if they don't have access or if they don't have some of that co-parenting stuff figured out. Unfortunately, I mentioned having my two sons, and I'll tell you, I went through a pretty terrible divorce, with their mom. It's like I said, I tried to make it work, but it's a long, sad story. And anyway, the saddest part of the story is the fact that, after we were no longer together, and I'll say it, I mean, there's always two sides of the story, right? But it's like, I believe in this, and I really, really, really try to have a co-parenting relationship. But anyway, long story short, it was a really, really nasty rift, and it really affected my children. And my youngest son, long story short, um it was just a lot, man. It was, there was abuse, there was his mom, but anyway, long story short, my son's, as an adult, his life ended. He took his mother's gun and he shot himself.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of the hardest things we ever dealt with. And just the rifts, existing, through his young life. And I just couldn't really imagine what he was going through, psychologically or whatever, just really kind of tore him apart. This hurts. I'm not Iron Man, I'm not Superman. This really hurts, but I have decided to really just try to turn, these tragedies to triumph, and just really, really use some of the things that have happened to me as a cautionary tale for other children. Like I recall Eli even telling, like, there's my son would actually do work with me sometime. He'd come out with me, in the community. He'd organize with me, he'd go out and talk to neighbors, talk to folks, because just frankly, that was actually one of the times that he could come and spend time with me, and it wouldn't be a big deal with his mom, because he could always say, hey, I'm just looking to work in the community. But it was during one of those times, like, we met this young lady in one of the neighborhoods. And frankly, I mean, my son, his name was Pharaoh. My son, Pharaoh, he was a kind of a handsome guy. He took after his dad. He was a handsome guy, handsome young man. So anyway, there was a young lady, a too old for him young lady, but there was a young lady in one of the neighborhoods. It was shortly after this happened, I ran into her and I explained to her what happened. And Eli, she told me a story. I mean, first of all, she was really upset. She started to cry. We talked through it, and I started to cry because I was hurting. But anyway, we were talking about it, and I kind of went into what happened, and she told me that, her daughter, who I think was 10 years old at the time, or 9 years old at the time, was self-harming herself, was cutting herself. And she was just like, wow, and she started to reevaluate some things. And she was just started to tell me the story of her and of her and her father, and how, her father was kind of out of the picture. She thought that it was best to kind of keep him away because, they made some lifestyle choices. She kind of chose to do some other things. And, I'm not going to use anybody's name so I can just tell the whole story. But the dad was in the underworld. He was involved in drugs and a bunch of stuff. He was involved in some pretty horrible things. But she felt like it was in the best interest of her kid to keep him away from her. But the baby was hurting, and so basically, even though they had some total lifestyle choices, and I'm not advocating for anything that he chose to do, but she actually just kind of reevaluated how she was handling things, and just actually acknowledged that she was alienating her child. And I'm just telling that story to say, it's just hopefully through some of the horrible things that I've had to endure, we can really change the narrative, and I can help people understand the cautionary tales of what happens when you can't get it right with your children.
Mm-hmm.
My story is probably one of the worst stories, but I mean, there's story time and time again of folks who, or children who just really could have really done better with proper support and a supporting system, because, a child never died from having too much love, or having love from parents and having love from step parents. And, for your children just to be conditioned, to reject the love from another parent or other step parents or whatever because of your own personal stuff.
Yeah.
It's just really, not only is it selfish, but it's downright destructive.
Well, I've long said that it actually ought to be illegal as a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe someday. In the meantime, listen, your story is just, some parts of it are just heart-wrenching. I'm so sorry to hear about your son. That had to be devastating. What motivates you to keep going, Terron? I mean, you've got so many good things going. You're making such a difference. What pushes you to keep going?
What pushes me to keep going is I know for a fact that I am what I call steeped in purpose. I am steeped in purpose. It's like, this is who I am. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's just like, I know that to be true because of the traumas that I've experienced, and because of some of the things that I've seen and been able to endure, and because of some of the ways that I've been able to endure them. It's just like everything that I've kind of gone through is just like, my work with Fathers Making Progress and my work in the community is kind of a culmination of that. And it's just like, right now, even in the role that I'm in working with and developing, I guess, the next leaders, who are going to carry this work on further. It's like, this is what and how I'm supposed to be doing it. So it's just like, just knowing that even when times get tough, and it's like, it's I don't even want to say it's not always easy. It's hardly ever easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hardly ever easy, but it's like, who said that it was supposed to be?
Right. Right. Yeah. That's wisdom right there. Listen, there's so much more I want to ask you, but we are out of time for this particular edition of the Father and Strong podcast. So hate to tell you this, but we're going to have you back again.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Hey.
Got
more stories to tell.
Yeah, there's a lot more I'm sure that we can learn from you and that our audience will be inspired by. One last question. How would someone contact you if they are interested in learning more about you and about fathers making progress?
Easiest way is through our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, Milwaukee Fatherhood Movement, on Facebook, that'll take you right to us. But yeah, we have a Fathers Making Progress. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page. We have a LinkedIn page. We have a TikTok. Or you can go on our website, fathersmakingprogress.org. Those are probably the easiest ways to get to us and to learn more. And I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but maybe, like you said, I have to come back. But we're actually in the middle of doing our nominations for our third annual Fathers Making Progress Awards, where we're actually honoring on Fatherhood Friday. So this June 13th, this Friday before Father's Day, we're going to be giving awards, to community dads from all over the city. It's a local thing, but yeah, so these are different dads for different categories. You can go to our website and check us out if you're in our area, and if you want to nominate someone. They're really nice awards. Either these are no paperweights, man. These are, we're giving like Grammy type awards.
Wow. Excellent. Well, it's very similar to something we're doing, so we can share stories about that next time.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, my friends, this has been Terron Edwards, and he is the president and founder of Fathers Making Progress, and doing just some wonderful stuff over in Milwaukee. And we're going to have him back again to hear more about that. And in the meantime, we want to wish you all the best, Terron.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Keep
and
up
I wish
the good
all
work.
the best to the folks right back. And thank you. And you as well.
Appreciate
Love the podcast.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk again. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Father and Strong podcast. Remember, if you would like to be notified as to when the various episodes are released, subscribe. Just go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Then you will get notifications each time one of our Father and Strong podcasts is released. Also, our Father and Strong blog posts are released every Monday, every week. So you also can benefit from those if you're not already checking those out. You can learn more about those at our website, fatheringstrong.com. Thanks again for being with us today, and we'll see you next time on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you found the conversation inspiring and helpful. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the Fathering Strong podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just search for Fathering Strong in your favorite app. The Fathering Strong podcast is brought to you by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit organization with a 3-decade legacy dedicated to turning the hearts of fathers to their children. Thanks to your support, we're able to keep this podcast and many other resources free for dads everywhere. To learn more about Urban Light Ministries or to donate and help us continue this important work, visit urbanlight.org. The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of Urban Light Ministries. Eli Williams is your host, and Bruce Stapleton of the Momentum Group is the producer and engineer. Our theme music is provided by saxophonist Harold Rayford.